Hey everybody. I days like this, after I've listened to all of your videos about the nurse patient ratios and the mandatory staffing, I deeply, deeply wish we were in a classroom so that we could have this conversation in person. I so appreciated your passion and your ideas, your rationale, your many, many stories of, can you believe this happened to me? And the answer is no, I cannot. I This is one of those assignments that I tried to build as an online environment to still give you a sense of connection to one another and hearing each other's stories. The mandatory nurse staffing ratio debate is a national topic, and I wish I could say that it's a 2019 national topic. It isn't. Staffing to safe levels has been an ongoing discussion and debate within the nursing industry for decades. We have slowly begun to standardize expectations to the point that our federal government, the CMS or Medicare and Medicaid Services, has said, we're not going to tell you what your ratios have to be, but you have to have one. You have to have a standardized process for managing your staffing within your hospital system, and it has to be consistently applied, and you have to demonstrate evidence that you're consistently applying it. Lots of really great ideas. Some highlights that kind of hung with me. Jaleesa mentioned how she, while being a nurse, she's still very type A, and that being type A makes her want to really do things well. I deeply believe that being a type A person is so supportive of good patient outcomes. I also know that when you are type A, you become even more at risk for burnout or compassion fatigue or just general stress related illnesses or disorders, things that come from I'm so stressed all the time. I think many of us go into nursing because the details matter. So I think Jalissa's point of being a type A person and being really sensitive to things not being the way they're supposed to, that I think that's a lived experience for many of us. I loved Randa's comment about the oxygen masks. I've been doing a little more flying lately, so I'm one of those nerds that when they stand in the aisle for your airplane and they're holding the signs and they're doing the life vest over your chest and tell you where they find it. I'm listening. So if a plane ever goes down and you're on it, I've got you. I also love the analogy, and Randa made the analogy of the oxygen mask. The airplane or flight attendant will explain to you that if you're ever in the need of oxygen and the masks come down, that you're to take the mask and put your own mask on before you help someone around you that may need assistance. Her analogy was that hospital systems needed to see their nurses as the first point of contact, that we need to put our oxygen mask over our nurses so that by supporting and caring for and managing the work quality for those nurses, that they actually positively impact the people that the nurses are providing care for, as well as people and visitors and people that come in contact with the hospital system. I think that's a great analogy, that we do need to take good care of our frontline staff, so that we are at our best, so that we can optimize our performance, and in turn, we provide better care. So I really appreciated the oxygen analogy. Um, the other thing, James, one of your classmates talked about a pilot program that he's doing in his hospital system that is actually looking at acuity tools and using one that is based on a flexible acuity tool that is driven through the electronic medical record that flexes and ebbs based on documentation. So I think that's a brilliant idea. It said that it was a pilot project, but wouldn't it be really cool if we could flex staffing based on the real moment, the live moment? Our television viewing has become, everything is instantaneous. Live PD and the instant performance shows like The Voice and the American Idol, where you could immediately see the impact of your influence. Wouldn't it be great if healthcare worked that way? That as the acuity increased on a floor, you could live track it and go, we've gone from an acuity level of 4 to an 8 because of our admissions, because of maybe the patient turnover. and then we get a new person. We get extra hands. Wouldn't it be great if it worked that way? I think James has an incredible opportunity to be piloting that. The other thing that Shaylin mentioned in her reply that I think links to what James's experience is in managing flexible acuity is looking at an acuity-based model. If we have to mandate staffing, if we're going to say this is what it's got to look like, do we then rob ourselves of James's experience of flexible staffing? Do we then rob ourselves of Shaylin's point of addressing acuity on a needed basis and understanding that a general med-surg floor is going to look different from a staffing ratio to a cardiac step-down unit that may have a higher level of acuity? If we say a patient is a patient and a nurse is a nurse, are we then, and because a patient is a patient and a nurse is a nurse, and then we have a black and white matrix that said for every one patient you get, or every 5 patients you get this many nurses, and we lock it down and we say that this is okay, are we not then actually creating a new problem? I am a very much no against the mandatory staffing laws, and I primarily because it treats nurses and patients like widgets. It makes everybody the same. It makes everybody the same skill level, the same illness level, and that's just not true. I worry, and one of the experiences that California, which has implemented a mandatory staffing ratio, they have a massive state shortage of nurses. And one of the primary reasons they have a massive shortage of nurses is because they can't keep up with a nurse is a nurse. You have a unit that requires 4 nurses, and those 4 nurses in California are just as likely to be traveler nurses as they are full-time employees of a hospital system. What we know is we have a national shortage of nurses. And because we have a national shortage of nurses, we have an ongoing quality issue with maintaining qualified nurses. So I would much rather have a flexible matrix that addresses the skill level of nurses. I would much rather have a level of acuity based on the level of acuity, then I need this level of staffing. I would like a system that recognizes that a novice nurse is not the same as an expert nurse that's been in practice for 5 years. I'd like a system that recognizes that a nurse that's precepting a new nurse is not as available as a non-precepting nurse. I'd like a system that looks at that. I'd like a system that says that not a nurse is a nurse, that I cannot put 4 warm bodies and 2 of them be travelers and 2 of them have less than 2 years of experience and call it a day. I think that's a bigger quality issue, and I think research supports that. What we know is stable, qualified nurses make a difference. So not a body is a body, but stable, qualified nurses. So we know that certification matters. We know that longevity within a unit matters. We know that nurses who are certified or have a higher degree, they matter. So if we're going to really deal with quality issues, I think we need to really begin to think about our staffing mix and how we how we design a system that we can hire. First, we've got to graduate them, but graduate new nurses, qualify them as practicing nurses, and then continue to support them in their practice as we address the national nursing shortage. I think until we deal with the national nursing shortage, we're just going to continue to circle like this, and we are become more and more frustrated, so then we become more and more willing to give up on a higher level of organizing patient care, of looking at patient acuity, of looking at the qualified staff and understanding that a nurse is not a nurse, that we are all different, that we all have different skill levels. Another plug about the nursing staffing issue is we cannot build nurses in our basements. One of the major reasons we have a national nursing shortage is there are not enough of me. Take a breath. There's not going to be any cloning of me. The world cannot handle more of me. Trust me, my husband reminds me of that. There aren't enough faculty. We have a national nursing shortage of faculty. We don't have enough people to teach the students who want to be nurses. So we have a limited quota of how many nursing students we can take, and based on the number of faculty, that's what drives the nurse. Add the complexity of clinical placement, hospitals being of hospital clinical space, because we're downsizing hospital beds because most of the not most, but much of patient care is now being done in the home setting. It's harder and harder to find clinical space. My hope in this assignment was, first, that it didn't make your eye twitch and cause lots of stress. My hope in this assignment was that you sat still and you thought about this as a bigger picture issue. We get really comfortable in our silos of feeling really personal about our perspective. My hope is, even if this debate didn't change your opinion, that you're informed about the other side and that you can come to the table when your organization is talking about staffing, and when people are opposing the side that you prefer or feel more comfortable with or believe deeply in, wherever you are, that you can be that you can partner with the other side, and you can say, okay, well, I hear what you're saying here, but let me give you a different way to look at that. We have to be able to talk from both sides. And as nurse leaders, we really have to talk from both sides. So I really appreciate your efforts in that. It made yesterday and today, and listening and watching to them, it made my heart ache, because I really wanted to be in a classroom and gather you all up and go, okay, let's really talk about this. I'm convinced that we could solve the world's issues. Okay, so that's enough about this week. If I think I said in my weekly welcome message, if I caused confusion and made you think that your quality part 2 was due week 6, please forgive me. My teaching partner in my undergraduate world has become acutely ill, and she is out. So I have now picked up a 6-credit workload by blinking my eyes. On top of that, my concern for someone I care about, she is not well. So things have gotten really weird in the past 2 weeks. So please forgive me if I created some confusion, because I am rushing through my weeks. You do not have to do quality part 2 this week. This week is a discussion board. Discussion boards are great. This one's actually really cool because it's straightforward. My hope was that week 6 was a deep breath, so you could kind of multitask and maybe begin to work on your week 7 quality project. This week is just looking at delegation from a nurse leader perspective. I want you to look at your Nurse Practice Act. If you happen to, I think everybody lives in South Carolina, but if you happen to live in North Carolina or a neighboring state, use the Nurse Practice Act in which you live, okay, wherever you practice, because that's what's relevant. I want you to look at your Nurse Practice Act, relate it specifically to delegation. And I want you to think about this from a nurse leader perspective. What does the Nurse Practice Act say about delegation? And then how do you use that from a nursing leadership standpoint? We all have to delegate. And I truly believe it is the thing that will make or break good nurses. Sometimes we have a martyr edge to us where we really want to do it all and we want to be everything to everybody, and because no one can do it as good as we do, we don't delegate. When we look at the rationale for not delegating, when you look at the research, the number one reason nurses use for not delegating is that they believe that they will do it better than the person that they can delegate it to. And that's a problem, because if that's the truth, then we need to do better training and mentoring of the people that work under us. And if it's not, then we need to help us take a deep breath and trust our peers and our colleagues to walk alongside us with the same level of commitment to quality. Give that some thought. It is a discussion board. You've got a primary thread due on Thursday. You've got your reply due on Sunday. Get it done. It's straightforward, kind of one of those low-hanging fruit things. As you begin to think about your work for next week, do not wait until the last minute to look at the feedback that's been provided to you from your quality project part 1. Clean up the odds and ends and follow the instructions for week 7's work. Know that I am here. If you have questions or concerns, remember the Ask the Professor link is up there for the logistics of who, what, where, when, how. Email me personally with questions or concerns directly to your own experience or your grade. I am here either way. My husband has also been in India for the past 2 weeks. He is due to be home in 2 days. So my world has just been weird. He normally does not travel that long, much less 10 hours ahead of me. So I'm around and I'm here. If you ever feel like you're guessing, if you ever feel like, I'm not sure what this lady wants, I'm here. Send me an email, give me a call, say, hey, can we chat? You do not have to be out there guessing. Online learning can be pretty isolating, and sometimes we like that. Know that if you choose to have a moment of not wanting to be alone, I'm here. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll look forward to seeing your discussion boards. Take care.